In this episode, we're going to look at supply chain risk in a way that makes sense even if you're brand new to cybersecurity. Your organization is not a single island. It is connected to other organizations, and those connections can help you succeed or can create risks you did not plan for. When you buy software, use cloud services, hire contractors, rely on logistics providers, or integrate with partners, you extend your operations beyond your own walls. That extension is powerful, but it also means that a weakness, failure, or bad decision somewhere else can affect you. Managing supply chain risk is not about distrusting everyone or trying to control what you cannot control. It is about setting clear objectives for what you need from vendors, suppliers, and partners so you can keep your own risk within acceptable boundaries. Those objectives must be practical, measurable enough to check, and aligned with what your organization cares about most, such as availability, confidentiality, integrity, compliance, and continuity. By the end, you should be able to explain what supply chain risk objectives are, why they exist, and how they guide decisions across different kinds of third-party relationships. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our Course Companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good place to start is defining what supply chain means in cybersecurity terms. In everyday language, a supply chain might sound like physical goods moving from factories to stores, but in cybersecurity it also includes digital dependencies, such as service providers that host systems, software vendors that provide updates, and partners that exchange data. It also includes people and processes, like contractors who manage systems, outsourced support teams, and external developers who touch code. The key idea is dependency. If you depend on an outside party to deliver a capability, you have inherited some of their risks and some of their operational realities. Even if the outside party is excellent, they still face outages, mistakes, insider threats, and the same kinds of attacks your organization faces. Supply chain risk management is simply the discipline of understanding those dependencies and setting expectations that reduce the chance that your dependency becomes your failure. For a beginner, it helps to remember that every outside connection is a trade. You gain capability and speed, but you accept some exposure. Now let's explain what a supply chain risk objective actually is, because the term can feel abstract. An objective is a clear statement of what you want to achieve in terms of risk outcomes, not a list of tools you want vendors to use. For example, an objective might be that third parties who handle sensitive data must prevent unauthorized access and must notify you quickly if exposure occurs. Another objective might be that critical service providers must meet certain availability and recovery expectations so your operations do not stop for long. Another objective might be that suppliers must control changes to their software and provide assurance that updates are not tampered with. These objectives guide what you ask for in contracts, what you check during onboarding, and what you monitor during the relationship. Objectives also help you prioritize, because not every vendor needs the same level of scrutiny. The level depends on how critical the dependency is. Objectives should align with your organization's risk appetite and tolerance, because supply chain risk is just one category of organizational risk. If your organization has low tolerance for downtime in a critical service, your objectives for the provider of that service must include strong reliability and recovery commitments. If your organization has low tolerance for certain types of data exposure, your objectives for any third party that touches that data must include strong controls and clear incident response expectations. If you treat supply chain objectives as generic boilerplate, you can end up with mismatches, like strict requirements for low-risk vendors and weak requirements for high-risk ones. A beginner-friendly takeaway is that objectives should be proportional. The more the third party can affect critical outcomes, the stronger and clearer your objectives should be. Proportional objectives reduce friction with low-risk vendors while focusing attention on the relationships that truly shape your risk posture. It also helps to categorize third parties, because vendors, suppliers, and partners are not all the same kind of relationship. A vendor might provide a product or service you consume, like software or hosting. A supplier might provide a component that becomes part of what you deliver, such as a library included in your application or a service embedded in your workflow. A partner might be a separate organization that works with you to deliver value, often involving shared data or integrated operations. These distinctions matter because objectives differ. You might demand strong security practices from a supplier whose code becomes part of your product, while you might demand clear availability and support commitments from a vendor that hosts your systems. With partners, objectives often emphasize shared responsibility, communication, and coordinated response because problems can spread across both organizations. Beginners should see that the word supply chain is a shorthand for many kinds of dependencies, each requiring objectives that fit the relationship. A core objective in many supply chain relationships is confidentiality, meaning protecting sensitive data from unauthorized access. If a third party stores, processes, or transmits your sensitive data, your objectives should cover who can access it, how access is controlled, how data is separated from other customers, and how incidents are detected and reported. Another core objective is integrity, meaning ensuring that data and systems are not changed in unauthorized or unexpected ways. Integrity matters in supply chains because tampered updates, compromised components, or malicious changes can spread quickly. A third objective is availability, meaning ensuring that critical services remain usable and recover quickly from disruptions. Availability objectives include expectations for continuity, backup practices, and recovery time, even if the details are not expressed in technical steps. For a beginner, it is enough to understand that these three goals describe what you are trying to protect, and objectives translate those goals into expectations for third parties. Another major objective is transparency, because you cannot manage what you cannot see. Transparency does not mean vendors reveal all their secrets. It means they provide enough information for you to assess risk and to respond when something changes. That can include clear descriptions of what data they handle, what subcontractors they use, and what their support and incident notification processes are. It also includes honest reporting of outages, security incidents, and major changes that could affect you. Without transparency, you are left guessing, and guessing leads to either underprotection or overreaction. A beginner should recognize that transparency is a risk control in itself because it allows earlier detection of problems and faster decision-making. If a third party refuses to provide basic clarity, that refusal is a risk signal, not just a negotiation detail. Supply chain objectives should also include accountability and shared responsibility, because confusion about responsibility is one of the fastest ways to fail during an incident. When something goes wrong, you need to know who is responsible for detection, who is responsible for containment, and who is responsible for communicating with affected users or regulators. If these responsibilities are not clarified, both sides may assume the other side is handling it, and delays can turn manageable events into crises. This is why objectives often include requirements for incident notification timelines, contact points, and cooperation during investigations. Even in a beginner lesson, the concept is straightforward. If you depend on someone, you need clear rules for how they will tell you when the dependency is in trouble. Accountability objectives turn relationships into dependable partnerships rather than vague assumptions. Because supply chains are about change over time, a strong set of objectives includes change management expectations. Vendors release updates, suppliers change components, partners evolve integrations, and subcontractors come and go. Each change can alter risk, sometimes in subtle ways, like moving data to a new location or changing how authentication works. Objectives related to change are about ensuring you are not surprised by major shifts that affect your risk posture. This can include expectations for advance notice for material changes, clear release practices, and the ability to assess impact before changes go live. Beginners should understand that many real incidents start as surprises, where an unannounced change breaks controls or exposes data. Reducing surprise is a practical way to reduce risk. Another beginner-friendly idea is that supply chain risk objectives should be designed for verification, even if verification is lightweight. If an objective is impossible to check, it becomes a wish rather than a control. Verification can be as simple as periodic reviews, evidence that certain practices exist, or confirmation that incident and support processes actually work during real events. The point is to turn objectives into expectations that can be confirmed, because confirmation is what keeps relationships honest and keeps risk management grounded. Verification also supports fairness, because it sets the same standards across vendors in similar categories. If you can verify your objectives, you can also learn which objectives matter most in practice and which ones create overhead without improving outcomes. Finally, supply chain risk objectives must support decision-making, because the goal is not to write perfect language. The goal is to choose vendors and manage relationships responsibly. Objectives help you decide whether a vendor is acceptable for a certain kind of data or for a certain level of operational criticality. They help you decide what compensating measures are needed if a vendor cannot meet an objective. They help you decide when to escalate concerns, when to demand improvement, and when to exit a relationship because the risk cannot be brought within tolerance. For beginners, the most important message is that supply chain security is not a separate activity from risk management. It is risk management applied to dependencies. When you treat it that way, your objectives become a practical tool for choosing, monitoring, and improving relationships. To conclude, managing supply chain risk objectives across vendors, suppliers, and partners is about defining what you need from external relationships so your organization can stay within its risk boundaries. Supply chain risk exists because dependencies extend your operations beyond your direct control, creating exposure to other organizations' mistakes, outages, and security failures. Clear objectives translate your priorities into expectations for confidentiality, integrity, availability, transparency, change management, and coordinated response, and they should be proportional to the criticality of the dependency. When objectives are designed to be verified and tied to accountability, they stop being boilerplate and start guiding real decisions across onboarding, operations, and incident handling. If you can explain supply chain objectives as outcome-focused expectations that reduce surprise and improve reliability, you have the foundation to manage third-party relationships with clarity rather than fear. That foundation is what makes supply chain risk manageable, even in a complex, interconnected world.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.